Welcome to the Theater of the Mind. We've been expecting you. Take your seat on the front row. I will be your projectionist. Enjoy the show.
Popcorn, cerebral popcorn, 50 cents.
The new Theater of the Mind, with the Baron of Broadcasting. The new Theater of the Mind, The Bruce Collins Show.
Welcome back to The Bruce Collins Show. We're very glad to have you join us. Tonight, I have a question to ask you. Do you believe in monsters? You know, Dracula, the werewolf, the chupacabra, all of these various monsters. Do you believe in them? Well, tonight, we're going to learn how to kill monsters with author Jason Offutt. Now, before I go any further, let me just alert you to the fact that Johns Hopkins University Research Department has just concluded a study recently. Now, here I have it in my hands. It's right here, Johns Hopkins University. The study concluded that listening to the Bruce Collins Show will add 3 years to your life. Just think, with those 3 years, you could write a book, swim the 7 seas, skydive over Machu Picchu, or eat pistachios on a hayride in Honolulu. Wait a minute, I read that wrong. It's 3 days. It will prolong your life 3 days. Listening to the Bruce Collins Show will add 3 days to your life. Make the most of it. So there you have it, my friend. The Bruce Collins Show is not just to be consumed for recreational purposes, but also medicinal uses. The Bruce Collins Show airs every Friday night at midnight right here at WWPR, 1490 AM. You can listen to past archives of The Bruce Collins Show at ipbn-fm.com. That's ipbn-fm.com. There's a banner just for The Bruce Collins Show on the Intrepid Paradigm Broadcasting Network website. Click on the show banner and you will go right to our page. Now, I know some of you are online and you're trying to Google the Johns Hopkins University research that I just stated. Well, you won't find it. And why? Because it's one of those secretive black budget research projects. Yes, the Bruce Collins Show has one of those. Now let me get back to what I was talking about. We would appreciate it if you're able to spread the word for our show by word of mouth, social media, or in whatever creative way you can. Also, we have a Facebook page for the Bruce Collins Show. Please like us there. Yes, the Bruce Collins Show Facebook page. More information than you can put in a storage locker. Check it out. And you can email the show at bruce_collins_show@AOL.com. Drop us a line. Let us know how we're doing. And let us know how you're doing. The Bruce Collins Show also has a YouTube channel. Visit YouTube, search for the Bruce Collins Show channel, subscribe, and catch all the latest shows on YouTube. And now for a moment, let me talk about something with you. Intimately, you and I talking one-on-one, except I'll do all the talking and you'll do all the listening. But still, you're my friend. I want to tell you about my life. I want to tell you about my experiences. I want to tell you about a major change in my life. I'm now broadcasting the show from the tip of a majestic mountain. As many of you know, I've been living in the Bay Area of Northern California for many years. Actually, I was born in San Jose, California. I moved to Tucson, Arizona in my teenage years, lived there for about 8 years, and then I moved back to Northern California, and I've been there ever since. So most of my life has been spent in the Bay Area of Northern California. But for those of you aware of Silicon Valley and all the fruits of its labor, a region that birthed the computer and all its hardware, the land that boasts the companies of Apple, Intel, Cisco, and many others, of course, with great prosperity comes great price hikes. And Northern California has been both a victor and victim of these advances. While the great companies and those at the top of the pyramid have increased the coffers of their ivory vaults, many of us here in the Bay Area found day-to-day living to have become more and more expensive. Rents are increasing, housing and property taxes are going up. We even pay some of the more expensive gas in the United States for whatever reason. As a matter of fact, I've heard that the Bay Area is only second in the nation in the most expensive place to live. Manhattan is number one, but then again, Manhattan is an island, so the land is limited there. Northern California can still grow outward from the Bay, but it is even expensive as you get into the Central Valley of California, as people who live here can attest to that. Anyway, I recently moved to a little town that is tucked away in the mountains. It's close by Santa Cruz, California. Most people know Santa Cruz as it was one of the destinations in the Beach Boys song Surfin' USA, and it was also featured as the backdrop for the movie The Lost Boys. Santa Cruz has a nice boardwalk. It's well known for that. It's really an amusement park on this boardwalk. There's an indoor miniature golfing area. There's restaurants. There's a giant roller coaster on the boardwalk. There's also a band shell, a performance stage, if you will, right on the beach where they welcome a lot of the old 60s surfing bands during the hot summer nights. Everybody gathered around the beach and Paul Revere and the Raiders play or some other band like that. I'm not in Santa Cruz, but if you head towards Santa Cruz on Highway 17, you take the turn off that goes toward Felton, California. Felton is another small town in the mountains. In fact, Felton has a very popular Bigfoot museum. You can Google Felton, California and Bigfoot Museum, and information on that museum should come up. Recently, Art Bell had the curator of that museum on his new show a couple of months ago. The town I live in is past Felton. And no, I haven't seen a Bigfoot yet, although I'm keeping my eyes peeled. You never know. These things could happen, and if they will, you, my friend, will be the first one to know. But as of yet, no success with the hairy beast. Now, I live in a small city at the base of the Santa Cruz Mountains called Clapton Falls. Of course, I recently moved there. I moved there after visiting the town a couple of summers ago. And, I moved there this year, but a couple of summers ago I actually visited and I started thinking about actually making this move to this small town. What struck me about the area is that it seems so peaceful. It kind of brings back memories of when my family used to camp out in the summer at a place called Big Basin, which is, actually it's past Los Gatos. It's a really nice wooded mountainous area. The only difference being that I'm not living in a tent these days, fortunately. So after I visited Clapton Falls a few years ago, I always thought to myself, if there's one place that I would love to live, it's here. And so partly because of rising prices in the Bay Area, I decided to locate to Clapton Falls in the mountains. It's a little bit of a commute to work. It probably takes me anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, something like that. And if there's a bad car accident somewhere on the highway, it could take a couple of hours. But it's totally worth it, in my opinion. The downtime away from the big city makes me feel like I can step away from all the hustle and bustle. I feel like I'm out of town, maybe sort of on a mini vacation on the weekends. Besides, I'm only an hour or so away from the Bay Area, so I'm still within driving distance of relatives, sporting events, and everything else I left there. Plus, Santa Cruz and the ocean are now about 20 minutes away. And, of course, the roller coaster and the giant band shell where the 60s surf bands play. So about this city, Clapton Falls. I took an old U-Haul and shoved all my things into the back of it and traveled down the highway to the city of Clapton Falls, nestled away from the rest of humanity by large mountains and tall trees. There's something about a town in the mountains, the clean air smell, you know what I'm talking about. The smell of the trees and all of the fragrances of everything that is carried on the breeze, except big town pollution. There's a falls area about a few miles from the city limits, so I assume that is Clapton Falls itself. I have yet to verify this, as I've only been here a few days, but it is the cleanest, clearest, bluest water you've ever seen. I wish I could show you. Just describing it doesn't give it justice. The falls are a 50-foot drop, and the sounds of a babbling brook leading away from the falls is just the most pleasant sound you've ever heard. I could spend all day near those falls with a thick, beat-up paperback. Surprisingly, there weren't too many near the falls either. I suppose the small-town city folk have been there many times. But to me, this was like a slice of heaven. In town, I haven't spent much time yet. I haven't really met too many people there either, but I suspect I will in the upcoming days. Last weekend was my first few days in town. And since I had those 2 days off from work, I did a little sightseeing, especially on Saturday. I walked around town by foot. I bought a few groceries at the small grocery store, so I had food for the week. And then I took off on foot for the downtown area. A traffic jam in the downtown area are probably 2 cars at a stop sign. There are no traffic jams, in other words. The downtown is a couple of blocks of old sturdy brick and mortar buildings, the kind that have been around for many years. I guess it's typical of the small town heart of the city, like what you'd see in Mayberry's downtown on the Andy Griffith Show. In the center of downtown is a park. It's not huge, but it's maybe half a block long. It sort of reminds me of the park in the downtown area of Hill Valley in the Back to the Future movie, although there's no clock tower like in Back to the Future. You remember the clock tower in those movies? That was hit by lightning and was central to the theme of the movie that gave the DeLorean the ability to travel through time. Well, there's no clock tower. It's just a park without a clock tower. The park has picnic benches, barbecue pits, and it has a little fountain in the middle of the park. And there were a few people there eating their lunches, and I saw 2 college or maybe high school age kids throwing a frisbee around. Kind of your typical lazy day in a small town. Not a whole lot going on. Here's something really kind of strange though. In the middle of this park is a bulletin board that has your standard job postings. It also has lost and found ads and other types of flyers. You know, get a slice of pizza at the pizza place down the street. But next to that, next to the bulletin board, is an old wooden sign that says, "Welcome to Clapton Falls," in all capital letters. Here's where it gets weird though. Above the words "Welcome to" is a very strange symbol. Now, I'm not trying to be an alarmist or to read too much into this, but I will tell you that I got a strange chill up and down my spine when I saw it. In fact, I couldn't believe it. Above the "Welcome to" part of that sign was the symbol of an eyeball, and under the eyeball was a ray of light. The eyeball was almond-shaped, and the ray of light was thinner at the top of the ray that was directly under the eyeball, and as the ray went got down further, the ray got a little bit thicker. So it was an eyeball with a ray of light under it, expanding as it went down. The symbol itself was probably about 9 inches on the sign, I would say. It could have been a foot tall, but I would say about 9 inches on the sign, and the overall sign is probably about 3 feet long. This symbol looked old, too, like it had been carved into the wood sign when the words were chiseled into it. When I say a ray of light, it looks like a light that is shining through the trees, or the kind you see in a drawing of a UFO with light coming out underneath it. Now, I'm not jumping to conclusions. It probably has some historical reference, but I will say that I thought of the Illuminati eyeball when I saw it. But I'm not thinking that it's Illuminati, don't get me wrong. But referencing that eyeball was maybe the reason why it kind of shocked me, or why it stood out in my mind. And another odd thing, as I stood there and looked at that image for a while and was puzzled by it, I couldn't help but notice out of the corner of my eye that the young people playing frisbee seemed to stop and look my way. I don't know, maybe it was my imagination, but it sure seemed like they stopped as I registered surprise at the symbol on the welcome sign. I'm over the surprise of it now, but I'm also curious about it still. And so I plan to do a little research into this symbol and why it is on this sign in the center of town. Other than that, I'm definitely adjusting to small town life. Just from my weekend foray into some of the shops and places around Clapton Falls, I can tell there are some very interesting people who live here. So the only downside so far is a longer commute and more money devoted to paying for gasoline. But the upside so far has been tremendous. And I'm thinking tomorrow or sometime this weekend, I will go back to the falls. Up next, we talk to Jason Offutt about shadow people and other monsters in a moment. And joining us this week, actually returning, is Jason Offutt. Jason Offutt is a syndicated columnist, author, college journalism instructor, and fan of all things strange. His books about the paranormal, Paranormal Missouri, Show Me Your Monsters, What Lurks Beyond, The Paranormal in Your Backyard, and Darkness Walks, The Shadow People Among Us. Also, Haunted Missouri, A Ghostly Guide to Missouri's Most Spirited Spots, are all available at Amazon.com. And you can actually go back to the archives on FringeRadioNetwork.com. Many years ago, we talked to Jason about Darkness Walks, The Shadow People Among Us, and also What Lurks Beyond, The Paranormal in Your Backyard. Both excellent books. Now, Jason is also the author of two new books. One is A Funeral Story, and also How to Kill Monsters Using Common Household Items. So if MacGyver was involved in the paranormal, he would be reading this book. Jason blogs at Jason Offutt, that's Offutt, jasonoffutt.blogspot.com. Tonight we'll be talking, of course, about his new book, How to Kill Monsters Using Common Household Items. Jason, welcome back to the Bruce Collins Show.
Hey, Bruce, this is terrific. Thank you so much for having me back.
Well, it's great to have you on. Now, one thing I heard about you recently was Art Bell quoted you, so I knew I had to have you on the show.
Well, and that's something art's art. I've listened to art. I listened to him since the mid '90s when I found out about the guy. I was on Coast to Coast once, and I'm like, God, I just want to be on art. I want him to interview me, and he was gone by the time I was actually on air. So I've never actually talked to the guy before. So to hear that he read some of my work on the air is pretty cool.
Well, and I would say, actually, there's a lot of Johnny-come-latelys when it comes to shadow people, which is kind of a weird thing to say. But your book was around several years ago, Darkness Walks, and it's a great book. I highly recommend it to people, by the way. Now, before we get to How to Kill Monsters, I also want you to talk about a funeral story, just to let people know what this book is about.
Okay, it is. It's my first novel, or should I say my first novel published. I wrote a novel right after I got out of college, which was just god awful. But everybody's got to write one bad novel, I guess. It is the story of a guy, 30 years old, still lives at home with his mom, plays Dungeons and Dragons with his high school buddies like he's done for decades. And he's just a real normal seeming guy, except for the fact that he likes to pick up and have sex with strange women at funerals.
So it's sort of like Wedding Crashers, but funeral crasher.
Yeah, well, somebody mentioned that to me. I have a problem with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, so I've never seen the movie. I
have not either, but I know the premise. Now, one of the things that I have to ask people. By the way, I tried my hand at fiction and nonfiction. I was terrible at both, but especially fiction, because every time I tried to come up with a new concept to move the book along, I'd say, how in the world do I do this? And I'd say, I know, I'll introduce a new character with that information. And I got in about 50 pages, and I had probably 25 new characters coming along every couple pages.
That happens.
Now, your book, How to Kill Monsters Using Common Household Items. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, I've always been a huge fan of horror movies. Horror, and I address science fiction monsters as well. And I was just wondering one day what would happen if there was a werewolf inside my house, or if I was, walked out to get the mail and a velociraptor, was in my yard. What would I do? What would I have within arm's reach that I could use to defend myself? So I basically took 12 monsters and figured out what to do if, one just happened to be in my house. How would I kill that specific monster?
So in a way, this book is ideal for preppers.
Right, absolutely. Because, like in, an example, if one of the monsters, if 16-ounce hammer would be very effective. Just make sure, a hammer, you incorporate that into all the wall art in every room of your house.
Excellent. Now, given that you mentioned household items that can kill monsters, is there any product placement in this book?
No. I'm not intentionally. There are certain types of weapons that I think are pretty specific. The type of claw hammer that I use, the type of chainsaw that I went into, I recommended a certain brand, but no, there's no. Didn't get a kickback from the company.
Okay, very good. I'm glad we had that disclosure. Very important.
Yeah, I really wish I would have gotten a kickback from the company, but it didn't happen.
Now, in your book, How to Kill Monsters Using Common Household Items, and again, we're speaking with Jason Offutt, is there a part of you that feels that maybe we shouldn't be killing monsters? Maybe we should try to understand them. Maybe Bernie Sanders would say that. Yes,
no, because the monsters that I dig into here are, one of them is the werewolf. It's an eating machine.
Yeah.
You cannot reason with a werewolf. You cannot reason with a killer robot from the future, because if you read the name, it's got the word killer in the name of the monster. So no, you cannot reason with any of these monsters. And if the monster starts begging, you're in deep trouble.
Now, I know Buffy was very popular several years ago, and I actually have a friend that was in that show for a little while. If there are budding vampire slayers in our audience, what kind of advice does your book have for killing vampires?
Well, and with vampires, let me tell you the best information that they can have, and it has to do with vampires. It has to do with werewolves. It has to do with demonic clowns. It has to do with your evil twin from a different dimension. Make sure the thing that you're going to kill is actually a monster.
Not a trick-or-treater?
No. If it looks human, but you think it's a monster, make sure it's a monster before you plant an axe in its forehead.
Yeah.
It's the paperwork gets kind of messy, and cops don't really have a sense of humor when it comes to that.
Yes, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
I mean, seriously. Okay, think of this. If you've got somebody or something that knocks on your door, you open it, you think it's a Bigfoot, and you shoot it. And it ends up being Seth Rogen. There's a whole lot of problems, just a litany of problems you have to deal with.
Yeah. I have a two-part question here, so I'll ask one part at a time. You make a comparison in your book between werewolves and Justin Bieber. Now, come on. Aren't you being hard on werewolves?
I am. And I need to apologize to the werewolf community right now on your show.
Very good. Yeah. Now, how do we identify a werewolf, say, as opposed to like a hairy wrestler like George the Animal Steele?
Well, werewolves have, there's some telltale signs, musky scent, unibrow, the index finger and middle finger on each hand are the same length. They may be trying to rip your throat out with their teeth. All those sort of things.
Yeah. Don't they howl at the moon, or is that myth?
Well, actually, our concept of the werewolf is set up by Hollywood. Namely, let's go back to the Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. Yes, he yells, he howls at the moon. The werewolf will only change into a werewolf if it's a full moon. That's all Hollywoodism. The poem. Even a man who is pure at heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the moon is full and bright. That was written by a scriptwriter. So the guy who wrote the script came up with that, and the gypsy woman who recited it couldn't even speak English. She only spoke Romanian, so they had to write everything down phonetically for her. But enough of trivia. The point is the traditional werewolf, not just the European, but all across the world, any were animal can change whenever it wants to.
So again, in being careful in telling people, make sure it's a werewolf, then we could probably say that 99% of the time, if someone is howling at the moon at midnight, they're probably just drunk.
Very, very, yeah. They could be a college student, yeah.
Oh, okay, very good. Now, can you really kill a reanimated corpse? Aren't they dead already?
Yes, they are. But if you remember the first Frankenstein movie, the villagers set him on fire. That will usually pretty much do it. The problem with setting a reanimated corpse on fire inside your house is that he's inside your house. I talk about the legal ramifications of being a monster hunter, and one of the things that I say is you have to make sure your homeowner's insurance is paid up. Okay, so if you set fire to a reanimated corpse and it takes out your house, you'll be able to to financially absorb that.
And I know State Farm, it's very hard to collect on something like that.
Yeah. From what I understand, they are really, really hard to collect on. If any homeowner's damage is the result of like dragon fire, or Godzilla stomping on your garage.
Yeah, I've known people who have tried, no success. Now, is there a difference between, say, a reanimated corpse and a zombie?
Yes, and I've got two different chapters in the book. The reanimated corpse is basically a Frankenstein monster. It is either made by science, where like Dr. Frankenstein did, who puts the monster together with various pieces of humans and stitches them up nice and neat, or it's done by magic. That is quite different from a zombie, because a reanimated corpse is a dead body who's brought back to life. A zombie's still dead. It's just a dead person walking.
Mm-hmm. So in that movie, The Crazies, those were zombies, right?
Wow, I've never seen that movie.
Actually, the guy who was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer was in The Crazies, and at the end he catches on fire. So that fire routine, I'm going to keep that handy because that sounds like something that works.
Right, and I suggest for a number of different monsters that are susceptible to fire to make sure in your house that you have in every room a can of Aquanet and a Bic lighter.
Yeah.
Or just keep open bottles of vodka, with rags stuffed in the tops of them. Just keep them around.
Yeah, and if you can plan a methane gas discharge at that time, even better, huh?
Yeah, yes. Stock up on chili.
Now, again, we're talking about the book, How to Kill Monsters Using Common Household Items. And I hope our listeners at home are taking notes. I know I am. And you can also, Jason blogs at Jason Offutt, again, that's OFFUTT, at .blogspot.com. And all of his books are great, I can recommend them, are available at Amazon.com. And the ones that stand out to me are Darkness Walks, The Shadow People Among Us, and also What Lurks Beyond the Paranormal in Your Backyard. And also Paranormal Missouri and Haunted Missouri are great too. Now, Jason, we always hear about Bigfoot these days. In fact, Animal Planet has devoted a whole program to Bigfoot. How does someone kill a Bigfoot, and is there any real proof that they enjoy beef jerky?
There is lots of proof. I don't know. I know you and your audience have seen the Patterson Gimlin film. Mm-hmm. What the enhanced version of that film? People have gone in and visually enhanced it digitally, and they have found that it is carrying a stick of beef jerky.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like beef jerky for a very, very long time. Generally, with Bigfoot, it's really, really hard to kill them with anything in your house. So basically, you need to get to the garage. Mm-hmm. And you make sure, if you are wanting to kill monsters, which I'm suggesting everyone should, you can't drive you can't drive a Flex vehicle, and you cannot drive a Chevy Volt. You have to drive a 4-wheel drive pickup, because the only thing that can take one of these things down is a really big truck.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
hey, if you're a garbage man, God bless you, you're going to be able to take one of these things out for us.
Oh yeah, maybe two.
Right.
Now, in the movie Harry and the Hendersons, that was a portrayal that seemed to suggest that maybe Bigfoot is friendly to mankind. Would you say that was propaganda?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's done by the Bigfoot Preservation League.
Yeah.
And total propaganda. What they should have done, what John Lithgow should have done in that movie, when he hit Harry with the car, he should have whacked its head off.
Absolutely, I wholeheartedly agree. What advice does your book provide about killer robots? Before killing them, of course, first, what does your book provide about them?
Well, the first advice I give, if your name is John or Sarah Connor, legally change your name. First off, do that. Make sure in your house, you have to remember these things are extremely heavy. So in your house, you've seen this in cartoons, cut a hole in the floor and put a rug over it. And make sure the basement is filled with water, and you're able to drop electric lines in the water at at a moment's notice. And if you can also dump, a ton of Quikrete in that water, you'll probably take care of the killer robot from the future.
On Art Bell's program at night, he has talked about clown videos, and you see these all around. Clowns in cemeteries, clowns showing up in towns. And you have a chapter on demon clowns. Is there a difference between demon clowns, clowns is another book, demon clowns and fake demon clowns like the ones on YouTube?
Well, the ones on YouTube, frankly, I hate clowns. If anybody out there is a party clown, forgive me for that statement. But clowns have always scared me to death. I grew up, in the 70s, and there was a scare. Lauren Coleman has written about this. I don't know if anybody else has, but I remember reading something that Lauren had written. But I'd lived through that. People reported clowns driving white vans throughout the Midwest, and I think even into Pennsylvania, and they would attempt to abduct kids. There were legitimate news stories in newspapers and on TV about this. So from that point, I've been terrified of these things. Now the ways you can tell if it's a regular clown or if it is a demonic clown is if it's drunk, it's probably just a regular clown. Okay, demonic clowns, well, they'll try to eat you.
Is there any percentage that some of these clowns perhaps could work for, say, Ringling Brothers, and they're out there recruiting people for the circus?
Oh, very, very, very possibly. Very possibly. There are different types of clowns, and yeah, I can guarantee that circuses are the biggest breeding ground for demonic clowns.
Yeah.
That and children's parties in Chicago, because remember, serial killer John Wayne Gacy was a party clown.
And they always seem to retire in Washington, D.C. It's amazing. Clowns.
Right.
Now,
yes.
Now, Jason, can a human really defeat a dragon?
Yeah, absolutely. Just the problem is you have to be prepared for it. Dragons are as smart or smarter than humans. They're also greedy, making them very susceptible to explosives. I don't have, for liability's sake, I didn't give the ingredients, the directions on how to make homemade C4, but if you're really serious about it, it's doable. Stuffing a holiday ham full of C4 will really take a dent out of a dragon's hunger.
One thing that really resonates with me about your book, How to Kill Monsters Using Common Household Items, is, as you just said, you advise people to prepare for a dragon, otherwise they might not be able to defeat one. So based on your advice, on a little cue card, and I would suggest people at home do this, I wrote down, prepare for dragon, and then I just put it up on the mirror of my bathroom. So every morning when I wake up and I go to the bathroom, that's there, and it prepares me for my entire day in case that happens.
Yeah, and you should. I mean, that's beautiful. I have mine written in my bathroom mirror in blood, actually, so I'll really pay attention to it. But one of the things with dragons, and this also comes in when you're talking about dinosaurs. I mean, seriously, for velociraptors in your house, it is fairly easy and inexpensive to build a homemade snowblower.
Huh.
And since these things are reptiles, it'll really slow them down.
I can imagine. That's a great idea. Now, as you said, you have a chapter on dinosaurs. What do you think are the percentage of people today having problems at Jurassic Park?
Well, I don't know, not Jurassic Park necessarily. That is just giving lots of bad information. Jurassic World, I'm sure a lot of the audience has seen that.
Yeah.
Just some advice on my part. Don't try to run away from a Tyrannosaurus Rex wearing high heels.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand how that worked. Now, it really depends on the dinosaur. One of the things I suggest, if you really think something small like a velociraptor might get into your house, become a hoarder. Mm-hmm. Make sure you've got stacks and stacks of old newspapers and magazines lying around. And in the stacks, you could possibly hide. Make sure you also keep plenty of Febreze to cover up your scent, and you'll be able to sneak out while it's trying to find you. If it is an Apatosaurus, one of the larger ones, try and coax it onto a bridge, because generally bridges can't hold the weight of something like an Apatosaurus or a Brachiosaur.
Yeah. One thing that I think about these movies that might be fake is the way that they portray people who are afraid of these monsters, because I've noticed that in the movies, when people are running away from monsters, they run slower so that they can turn around every 3 seconds and see how far away the monster is. And then they trip. And I keep thinking, run as fast as you can, but they don't seem to get that.
No, and that's what you should do generally. I guess it depends on the monster. I keep up on news, keep up on all monster news, even animals that aren't really considered monsters, but you're still scared of, and maybe running away isn't the best for all. I'll give you an example. Just about 3 years ago, a 25-year-old woman in Juneau, Alaska, she lived on the outskirts of the city, heard her dog yelping. And she thought it wanted back inside the house. Now this woman's like 5'1", maybe 100 pounds. She heard the dog, so she opened the door to let it in, and she saw that in the yard, a black bear had the dog in its mouth and was shaking it back and forth. Okay, this woman is going to give you guys the exact, the proper method for handling a monster. What would you do in this case? Generally, I would shut the door and get a new dog.
Yeah.
What this woman did was she ran across the yard screaming, punched the bear in the face, punched it right on the end of the nose. It dropped the dog and ran away.
Huh.
Okay, so sometimes a full frontal assault is the best way to deal with these creatures.
Yeah. Well, there was a video recently on YouTube, and no joke, it was like a little dog chasing some bears away from the owner's backyard, and they didn't even know what the dog had done until they came home from work and looked at the video from their backyard. And it's like this little dog is chasing. Granted, they were bear cubs, but they were bigger than the dog, and it was multiple bears. So it was amazing. You never know. Now,
Bears, nature's cowards.
That's right. Now, do you think that political correctness, which seems to be rearing its ugly head all over the place, will political correctness destroy our ability to kill monsters someday?
Yes, absolutely. Specifically, if it's a human-like monster, let's look at reanimated corpses for a second. Reanimated corpses, again, not zombies. If they bite you, well, it just happens. You're not going to turn into one. Unless you're, the only problem you should have if you're a reanimated corpse is if you're an 11-year-old German girl picking flowers.
Yeah.
Okay, because they usually get killed by these things. But they're going to start taking our jobs. Okay? We couldn't stop these reanimated corpses from taking our jobs. If we did, we'd the political correctness police would be on us in a second.
And I'm thankful that, considering that a lot of politicians are trying to push gun control, that your book addresses common household items, because I think that's important.
Well, yeah, to give you a couple of things people generally wouldn't think of as weapons. If a monster breaks into your house, the first thing you should do is dump the kitchen trash can onto the floor. What do you usually have in there? Broken light bulbs, the tops from tuna cans. Mm-hmm. If these monsters run in and shred their feet, they're going to be a little bit slower chasing you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. Get into the freezer and pull out the turkey that you were saving for Thanksgiving. Do you know the skull-crushing power of a 15-pound turkey? Mm-hmm. It's absolutely brutal, and it's saved my life more than once.
Huh. So pack rats will rule at the end of time.
Yes, as long as they, maybe keep, maybe keep some kitchen knives, stuck in the piles of crap that they have. It's always nice to have a blade around, but watch out what kind of monster you're attacking with a blade. A werewolf will just laugh at you and then eat you. If it's a little gray alien, you can hack through one of those like you were hacking open a ham.
Yes, and we can't stress enough. Make sure it's a monster that you're killing.
I have a disclaimer right at the front.
Yeah, which means about 100% of the time we don't want to hear about you in the news. Now again, we're speaking with Jason Offutt, the author of How to Kill Monsters Using Common Household Items. And aside from buying this book, Jason, How to Kill Monsters, how does your book say we can prepare for the apocalypse?
Well, one of the things that I think is extremely important is to prepare for your health after the apocalypse happens. And I don't mean you can't really hoard medicine. You can wait till after the apocalypse and then go in and get all your blood pressure meds you want. I'm suggesting have your appendix removed. Okay? Anything that you may have a problem with, get your teeth worked on. Make sure your teeth are fine. Make sure that you've got 2 or 3 pair of glasses, because you don't want to be Burgess Meredith in the Twilight Zone episode when the apocalypse happened and he broke his glasses.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to make all that prep. Take a first aid class. Have fun, because you know what? If you know the apocalypse is going to happen, you're not going to need that money.
Yeah.
Okay. Learn how to purify water. Learn how to catch and butcher your own food. Learn how to grow a garden. I also have in there the Offutt bread, the Offutt zombie bread hypothesis, which is basically this. If the apocalypse happens and it's zombies and I'm spending the day fighting zombies, I'm going to want a sandwich. If the society is crumbled, where am I going to get bread? You need to know how to make your own bread.
Well, boy, that's great advice, Jason. Thank you. Now, given that you've been fascinated by the paranormal, is Jason Offutt a believer in these weird entities, or are you a skeptic? And I'll even preface that by saying, when I first started doing this type of radio program 9 years ago, there was a lot of things I kind of tended to give credence to, and today I'm a total skeptic, unfortunately. I hate to say that. I mean, I'm still somewhat open-minded, but I don't know. You know, there's certain things I don't know. Now, but as for you, you write about a lot of strange things. Are you a skeptic or a believer?
Yeah, I hate the word believer, but yeah. Oh, it depends. I'll just answer it that way. When I was a kid, I saw shadow people. Okay. That's why I decided to research and write the book Darkness Walks. I also saw a full-bodied apparition in my house. So are there shadow people? Are there ghosts? In my opinion, yes, there are. And look at look at the history of the world. How many every civilization on the planet, even back when everything was disconnected, or maybe it wasn't, we were don't know. Everyone has everyone has ghosts in their belief system. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Right. So do ghosts exist? Well, billions of people throughout centuries, millennia have thought so. So yeah. UFOs / extraterrestrials, given the number of planets in the universe that we can guess about, statistically there's got to be. One of my favorite quotes on this subject is a Carl Sagan quote: "If we're the only planet in the universe with life, that's a waste of space." So yes, I think I think statistically wise, there's got to be life out there someplace. And Bigfoot, again, let's go to every place on the planet. They've got a Bigfoot type creature in their mythology. And if you can have the same type of creature in Europe, in China, in North America, in Africa, and in Australia of all places, yeah, maybe I mean, I'm not saying 100%, but I can see if somebody captured one and cut off its head. Yeah, I can see that those exist. One of the things, I mean, I'm skeptical of a bunch of real vampires. No. Yeah,
and now that you've explained it in that way, I guess I would come more to the center now, because I guess it's not being skeptical of all of those things. It's more like being skeptical through time of how much people really know about these things.
Okay, then we're getting on to something different.
Yeah, we are.
How much do people know? Really not much at all. What can we know? Yeah. I think what we can know, if I was out in the woods and I came face to face, actually face to chest, actually maybe face to belly button with a 9-foot, 500-pound hairy human / ape-like creature, I would know that exists.
Yes, that's true.
How's the world going to know it exists? Okay, It's the same with ghosts. I've seen one.
Yeah.
Can I convince anybody else? No, but I know that I did. I wrote an article for Mysterious Universe a couple of years ago that some people patted me on the back for, others got mad. And basically, it's everybody out there investigating the paranormal. I don't care how good intentioned they are. Nobody's going to believe you unless you have something physical. EVPs don't count.
Right.
Temperature changes don't count. Photographic evidence definitely doesn't count. If it's Bigfoot, shoot it. You need a body. If you don't want to shoot it, okay, you don't have proof.
Right.
Ghosts, I mean, unless science can reproduce a ghost appearing in a lab over and over and over, it doesn't exist to science. So, I mean, proving it exists is next to impossible.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem is because there are people like yourself who are sincere and say, I saw something, so, but by and large, I've noticed that there's a lot of charlatans out there, with certain motivations, and also there's a lot of photoshopped images. So it's really, I think when you're bombarded with that, then you start getting more into the skeptical side. Jason, this has been great. Let me remind our listeners that you're the author of A Funeral Story, What Lurks Beyond, Darkness Walks, Paranormal Missouri, Haunted Missouri, and these are all available at Amazon.com, and also available at Amazon.com what we've been talking about tonight, which is How to Kill Monsters Using Common Household Items by Jason Offutt, and Jason blogs at Jason Offutt, that's Offutt, jasonoffutt.blogspot.com. Jason, this has been awesome, and I hope you can come back again sometime.
Hey, Bruce, just anytime you want me back, I'd love to come back on the show. This has been a great time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Bruce Collins Show, where you can find us every Friday night at midnight here at WWPR 1490 AM. Remember, God loves you. We do too. Don't give up.